All right, so it looks like we are having everybody file in. Good afternoon and happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Annetta Stroud, Associate Director for Content and Curriculum for Acro, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Digital Documents and International Admissions, What You Need to Know. As always, we are hopeful that our technology will not fail us. This is a fairly large Zoom call, and we at Acro, like many of you, remain at the mercies of our home Wi-Fi's. We are using the Zoom webinar platform today, and by default, your mics and cameras are disabled. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat function and select all panelists, and we will work directly with you to sort it out as best we can. You may also use the chat freely while on the webinar. However, if you have questions for our fantastic panelists today, please use the Q&A function. You may post questions in the Q&A at any time during the webinar. We will be holding all questions until after the presentation. Today, I'm very excited to welcome two outstanding professionals in the international arena, Peggy Bell Hendrickson, Director, Transcript Research, and Acro's very own Leslie Clausen-Eicher, Associate Director for Acro. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Leslie.
Awesome. Thank you for that nice intro, Annetta. Thank you all for coming. I think we've got some really good information for you today. But before we get into the real meat of the presentation, which Peggy will present to you, I'd like to set the stage by giving you a brief overview of the situation on exchanging digital documents within the US and Canada. We're going to take a moment here and to start our presentation by asking you some polling questions. So the polling questions are going to be about exchanging digital documents, and you may not know the answers to some of these questions, and that's okay, because we're going to be talking in more depth about the nuts and bolts of digital document exchange specifically with international institutions and about digital formats in general. So, Annetta, would you launch that poll, please?
All right, the polling is launched, and thanks everyone for going ahead and answering some of our questions. And we'll give you guys a couple seconds, about 60 to 70 seconds to go ahead and vote, and I'll let you know when you have about 10 seconds remaining.
We see the votes and the answers rolling in. That looks great.
No, it's so exciting.
It is, and right now we're at about 155 participants, so this is going to be some interesting data that we're gathering.
Okay, it looks like somebody has raised their hand. Oh,
okay, we're at about 68%. We'll go ahead and give you guys about 15 more seconds before I end the poll.
Okay, somebody has just mentioned that they don't see a poll. Do they need to click on the poll at the bottom of the screen?
All right, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end the poll now. We've got 70%, 73% have voted, and so I'll go ahead and end the poll now and share the results and turn it back over to Leslie.
All right, thank you, Annetta. This is interesting. So number one, does your institution or organization send or receive digital academic records in any format? Sending, we noted 3%, receiving 31%, both 65%. I'm not sure how those numbers add up, or neither 2%. Okay, interesting. You know, I think we're going to find that as we learn a little bit more about the exchange of digital documents that you might find out some things you didn't realize about your own institution. Question number two, if so, do you send and receive them between countries? Sending, yes, 72%, and no, 28%. Okay, and what type of institution or organization do you work for? So we've got representation from American higher ed institutions of 78%, international higher ed institutions of 3%, other North American at 8%, and then 11 from other. So interesting, we have quite a broad representation on the poll today. Okay, can you advance to the next slide, please?
Yep. Are you seeing the next slide?
Can we go to the next slide?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had. Are you? Leslie, are you seeing the new slide?
Now I am, Peggy. Thank you.
Okay.
My internet boot. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes. Are you? Okay.
Good.
So.
Sorry about that. My internet booted me off. I'm
Oh,
sure
no.
that some of you have had that experience too, since we've all been working from home.
How exciting.
But let's jump right back into this. I'd like to give you a quick overview of the history of the digital exchange of academic documents in the United States and Canada. This is really where it all started in 1988 with the Acro Speedy Committee. So what is Speedy? Well, that is the acronym for the Standing Committee for the Standardization of Post-Secondary Education Electronic Data Exchange. So as you can see from this timeline, established in 1988, and it was actually developed and created in order to promote the implementation of standards for the electronic exchange of student economic educational data within the Acro member community. Now, a couple of important dates to point out. In 1991, the standard format and server network was developed. And so the first exchange format called EDI, or Electronic Data Interchange, was developed. And since then, between 1996 and very recently, August of 2020, the server that exchanges the digital documents had exchanged a cumulative grand total of 83.2 million documents. So you can see that this is a growing phenomenon, exchanging digital documents. Some examples of the types of documents that are exchanged include transcripts, requests and acknowledgements, admission applications, test scores, things like that. So if you are interested in reading more about EDX and Speedy, or the Speedy server itself, I've hyperlinked these terms here on the document. Or if you want to read more about PDF best practices, you can read about them there as well on that hyperlink. Next slide, please. Now, I wanted to also point out an Acro 60-second survey. One of the things that Acro does is periodically survey member institutions. And so in 2017, we ran a survey titled The Use or Not of Electronic Transcripts. And the results pointed out that 91% of institutions actually receive digital documents by PDF, and 83% of the institutions surveyed send documents by PDF. So this is one of the most common types of digital transmission of documents that we do in North America. The other very common type is EDX, which is an umbrella term that encompasses the different formats that are used. So for instance, EDI, which I referred to a moment ago, or XML, which is extensible markup language. And it's kind of similar in some characteristics to HTML, which you might be familiar with. So that survey showed that 31% of all institutions report receiving transcripts by EDI and 25% by XML, whereas 22% send them that way and 14% receive them. So this is becoming more and more common in our world. One other format that exists that I haven't listed here, but is kind of in its infancy, is blockchain. Now, you may have heard of blockchain, and if you've ever traded Bitcoins, you have used blockchain. Peggy's going to share some more information about blockchain as it pertains to the exchange of academic documents in the next segment of our presentation. Peggy, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Leslie and Annetta. Thank you for letting me talk for a few minutes about digital documents for international admissions. I love this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about several different digital document systems. We're going to start with Parchment Exchange's digital credential service, since it may be something that many of the Acro international education community are already somewhat familiar with. Next, we'll take a peek at Digitory Core, which is also utilized by institutions in a number of countries. After that, I want to briefly look at two government-backed services in China, as well as some of the different electronic transcript systems in India. We'll examine two different systems in the United Kingdom, and then we'll wrap up by viewing blockchain documents from Singapore. So we have a lot to cover. So I may go a little bit quickly, but you've all received the handouts via the link from Annetta in chat. Okay, so before we start looking at any one service, I want to give a quick overview of the different types of systems we'll be viewing today. So digital repositories or portals allow the student or learner to send their full academic records via a secure platform to a third party, like a US higher education institution or a credentials evaluation company. Verification systems authorize a third party to log into a website where we can verify the student record or verification report, and that requires a student authorization, which might be a signature release, or if the student is providing a report to you that you can verify online. And again, we'll look at one country who is issuing all of its official documents, not just its academic documents, but all official documents using blockchain as part of a government technology initiative. So first up is Parchment Exchange. While some of you may use Parchment to send your own institution's records, or you may have a Parchment Receive account for large numbers of digital transcripts from institutions in your own country, offices that work only with international credentials may find that you can also accept digital transcripts using Parchment Exchange without having a big account. So numerous countries outside the US are using Parchment Exchange for individual institutions, including a handful of institutions in places as disparate as Finland, Hong Kong, Italy, Jamaica, Malaysia. So essentially, the student makes arrangements to send the documents to your institution at no cost to you. And Parchment's also used by a number of institutions in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. To use Parchment Exchange, you simply have to ask your prospective student to send their transcripts to your institution by registering on the Parchment website, which is listed on the last slide of this section. The student can then send a secure email to your institution via Parchment. So in this example, a student is arranged to send her transcripts to us from the University of Toronto, which is involving a three-step process. So the first step is the student requesting the email notification that we receive, and that tells us that we need to access a secure document. Clicking the link in that previous email generates a request for a passcode, and that's ensuring that we're authorized to access her records. A few moments later, we receive a follow-up email generating the access code. For step 2, we're entering the access code into the website, and that allows us to view the download page. So this page shows the name and document ID for the student who requested their documents to be sent to us, and then it also has a download button that allows us to download the official documents as a secure PDF. Now here we can see the cover page for the official transcripts. And so this cover page is what is showing us that this is a secure document. I mean, obviously we downloaded it ourselves, so we know it is, but if you're using Adobe Acrobat Reader to view the PDF, you'll see that this is a trusted certificate. So you'll see this blue document certification bar at the top. Now, in this case, we had to update the trusted certificates. But once you do that, you can see in Adobe that it's showing that the PDF is certified and digitally signed by Parchment, so that you don't have to save all of the individual steps to show you where you received this document or how you know it's official. And then the remaining pages of that PDF that we downloaded after the cover sheet are the official transcript, and you can actually see that this was issued to our institution. So I've included 2 links here. The first is where you or your student can look up which institutions by country are registered with Parchment Exchange to send their transcripts. That way, if your student or prospective student isn't sure if their former university sends through Parchment, you can look before registering. And the second link is where both students and third-party organizations like universities or evaluation companies can register for different Parchment services, such as Parchment Receive, or if you're wanting a larger account. So students arrange to send their transcripts to you at no cost to you. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a bit and talk about another international digital records service, Digitary Core. Like Parchment, Digitary is used by a growing number of institutions in various countries around the world. Digitary Core lets learners and students share their official student records with anybody who needs that access, whether it's higher education institutions, employers, government agencies, anything like that. At present, Digitary is most commonly used in Ireland, since they run EduCampus, and that's the digital transcript system in place in Ireland, and Australia and New Zealand, since they operate MyEquals, which is the digital student record system used in Australia and New Zealand. It also has partnerships with CHESIC in China, and we'll talk more about CHESIC in a few minutes, and CollegeNet in the US. Just recently, it started on a project in Canada to build the Canadian National Network, so that's very exciting as well. And there are also individual higher education institutions in places as disparate as India and the United Kingdom who send their documents via Digitary. So the student logs into their Digitary account and shares their documents with you after they pay the fee required by their institution. They can share their documents by either sending an email to your institution if you're registered in Digitary Core, which is what you see on the screen, or by copying and sharing a computer-generated URL and manually emailing that to you. Since my organization is a designated recipient, we receive an email letting us know that a new document has been sent to us via our account, and there's no cost to us for using this service. So first up, we log into the Digitary Core website, which is actually a 2-step process because it requires a username and password on this screen and then 2-factor authentication on the next screen. Once we've logged in, we can see the transcripts that have been sent to us, which includes currently active transcripts, inactive transcripts, archived transcripts. After we click on a student's name, and then it'll also have their email here as well, so that if you don't have an account for them already, you'll be able to contact them if they need to apply with you still. So after we click on a student's name, we can bring up an embedded on-screen view of their transcript. They might also provide a subject or a reference number that may make it easier for you to match them to your existing system. To download the official document, you can select either PDF or XML version of the document. When we download the PDF version and open it in Adobe Reader, you can see the blue Certified by Trusted Certificate panel at the top of the document. So that again, when you're saving the information, you know where this came from. At my institution, we always save envelopes, and if things are being downloaded, we want to know where they came from. And I've included 2 links here, one for the students and learners to log in so they can send their documents to your institution, and a separate link for you to learn more about Digitary if you're interested in registering to become a recipient. Okay, so for the next several minutes, we're going to focus on 2 different government agencies in China. So first up, let's talk about the CDGDC, the China Academic Degrees and Graduate Education Center. CDGDC is the national service that verifies university qualifications, so the bachelor, master, and doctoral degree certificates. It does not verify transcripts anymore, and it does not verify graduation certificates for those bachelor, master, or doctoral levels, or the graduation documents from the Zhuangke short cycle associate level credential. Just a quick note that this website works best in Chrome, at least right now, and sometimes it doesn't work at all in Firefox. So if you're having difficulties, you might try a different browser. There is no fee at present for students to request online degree verification from CDGDC. Okay, so this same screen is used for both students to request the verification on the left, and they can log in or create a new account. And then on the right-hand side is for third parties such as yourselves to verify the report. So this system requires students to provide you with a verification report that CDGDC has created after they verify the degree with the degree granting institution. So when you go to the CDGDC website to check a student's degree certificate, you'll enter the report or verification number and then the CAPTCHA code that's generated on the right-hand side of the screen. Documents issued before 2018 will also have an application number on the document. Then you press the blue button to check the database. If you're accessing a valid record, you'll receive a pale blue or blue-green or aqua, depending on your monitor, copy of the report on your screen. So if it's been verified, then it's that bluish-greenish color. Some students are still able to order English documents, but most of the time these days, the documents are issued only in Chinese. This particular sample is a few years old because I wanted to show you that it has both the application number and file number since it's before 2018. But you can use the Google Translate plugin or a Chrome browser to quickly convert it to a somewhat passable English translation. But in our office, we still require a professional translation, but that's up to you. So both of these URLs will take you to the same verification portal, but sometimes one of them works and the other one doesn't, so that's why I've included both. So the previous service verified only the degree certificates, but another agency verifies different documents. So CHESIC, the China Higher Education Student Information and Career Center, allows you to verify different validated records. CHESIC does charge students a fee, which varies depending on the document order. So they have to order transcripts and graduation certificates separately. So if you require both, as we do, because they represent different things, make sure that you let the students know up front to avoid any surprises or delays. CHESIC's website is available in both English and Chinese. And this English page shows the currently available reports that can be checked on the CHESIC website. So CHESIC offers two different higher education records, the Certificate of Graduation qualification and the academic transcript. It offers two different exam results, the college entrance exam scores and the Huikao or high school academic proficiency test. And then you can also, students can also order the high school diploma. CHESIC no longer allows students to order high school transcripts, but if a student ordered it before they stopped processing them, you can still verify them, which is why it's still on here. And each of these has different samples that you can look at that are in English. And here is what some of the samples from the CHESIC website look like. So on the left-hand side, you can see a four-year Benke or undergraduate program, long cycle program, the certificate of graduation for that. And then in English on the right is a sample academic transcript for a different program. In a few more slides, you'll see I've provided two different sets of links for CHESIC because sometimes the Chinese version works when the English one doesn't and vice versa. And this is true both for accessing the student order page as well as the verification page. So on the left here, we have the verification in English. And then here is what it looks like on the Chinese version. But on both of them, you're entering the student report number and the CAPTCHA code that's here and pressing the blue button at the bottom. Okay, one moment, please. Okay, so once we've entered the student's report number and the CAPTCHA code and pressed the button, we can access the student's verification report directly on the screen. Sometimes the reports are available only in Chinese, but often they've also ordered them in English, depending on what the student paid for and what was available at the time. You just have to know where to find the characters. So this up here will provide you with the default, which is in Chinese. And then if you press this button, you can see the English version. Okay, and let's see. You can print on the screen just using whatever keyboard shortcuts you have to print screen, or you can email it to yourself or download it as a PDF. Sometimes you'll also have the school issued documents with a Chesic watermark on them that you can also download. Sometimes they're all as separate pages, English, Chinese, and the school issued documents. And sometimes they're all as one single record. So it's very exciting. So here are the two links, or two sets of links, for the student order process and the results checker, essentially. Just a quick note that if you're wanting any updated information about COVID or anything else that's time sensitive from either CDGDC or Chesic, you're most likely to get more detailed information from the Chinese version of their websites. Okay, so now it's time to shift gears again and talk about India. So India's massive educational system boasts a commensurately large number of electronic transcript services, but we're just going to look at a few because we could otherwise spend the entire time talking about just India. So the first one we're going to examine is called TrueCopy. Over 400 colleges and universities in India have utilized TrueCopy since 2012 to send their official transcripts to third parties. The documents are loaded by the institution or sent to TrueCopy by the institution, and the student pays to have their documents sent to a third party, and that fee varies by the issuing institution and the number of third-party recipients. We receive an email when documents are added to our portal, but this is actually, the email is something we had to request, but documents will be loaded directly into your institutional portal as soon as a student requests to have it sent. So TrueCopy provides a dedicated portal to your institution so you can log in and receive the student's authenticated documents. As I mentioned, these documents are either received directly from the institution by a sealed stamped envelope, or the institution can upload it directly into the TrueCopy system from their own official institutional account. Like some of the others we've looked at today, TrueCopy allows you to view your current and archived documents sorted by name or date of receipt. And when you click on a student's file, it immediately brings a pop-up to open or save the PDF of the student's documents. And at that point, you can open or save the PDF. So now, please, I just want to make a quick note that if you have specific requirements regarding affiliated colleges versus degree granting universities issuing documents, or consolidated transcripts versus annual or semester mark sheets, provisional degree certificates issued by the college versus final degrees issued by the parent university, or any other document requirements, you'll want to communicate that with your student before they order their documents to ensure that they're ordering the correct thing for your institutional policies. Okay, and here we have the links for students to sign up to have their documents sent to a third party, as well as the link for your institution to learn more about TrueCopy. And if you're interested in becoming a recipient to have an institutional portal, you can contact their corporate sales department. Okay, this is a very exciting part. The biggest electronic transcript system in India is the National Academic Depository. It was established in 2016 and formally launched in 2017 by the Ministry of Human Resources Development and the University Grants Commission. Now, there have been a number of changes in the last few months that we're going to talk about briefly, but I suspect there will be more changes in the near future. So it's quite possible that if you arrange to start doing this, it will be completely different by the time you go live. Okay, so the National Academic Depository facilitates digital document issuance, storage, access, and verification by academic institutions in India. It integrates directly with central universities, state universities, deemed to be universities, private universities, the Central Board of Secondary Education, as well as the state boards, institutions of national importance, and other higher education institutions. So it's very robust. NAD contains degrees, certificates, mark sheets, etc., and they're all stored digitally and available to students 24/7. More than 700 educational entities in India have made their records available in NAD. Initially, the National Academic Depository was accessible via two different database providers, the CVL Academic Depository and by CDSL Ventures Limited, and NSDL Academic Depository. So for CVL, Indian universities and approved educational institutions upload the student academic records on the CVL Academic Depository. After you create an account with them, you can log in to receive or request digital records. These records can be accessed by the student and sent to a third party, or they can be requested directly by your institution or other third-party organizations known as verifiers. If your institution is initiating verification, you will need to enter the student's CVL number or email ID and initiate verification. That sends an email through the system or an SMS to the student, and they have a reasonable amount of time to respond, which in some places say up to a week, and in others it just remains vague, so I don't know exactly how long. To see your pending requests, you simply select Request Details, which will allow you to filter by the requests that you've initiated. If the student provides consent, they select individual documents to be released to your institution. So they may have 5 different school records at various levels of education, and they only want you to have 2 of them. And then payment can be made by the student or the verifier. NSDL has a similar portal to allow third parties to request consent from students to access their records, but I don't have any personal experience. We're not signed up with them. Now, this is where things get exciting. Earlier this summer, in June, the NAD website posted this notification from the University Grants Commission stating that the National Academic Depository is being moved exclusively to Digilocker, which is a digital wallet provided by the Ministry of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. According to this letter, which you can see on the NAD website, educational institutions have to transfer their records from CVL and NSDL into Digilocker. Now, since both of these other systems still exist and are still accepting student registrations and still allowing institutions to become recipients, it's really not clear how long all 3 systems will be in place. But apparently, Digilocker is now the official digital repository for academic institutions in India. But actually, Digilocker is far more than that. It also allows users to store their driver's license and vehicle registration, identity card, financial records, and other official documents that they need for their life. So students sign up for a Digilocker account and request that their individual secondary, higher secondary, technical secondary, post-secondary documents be loaded into their digital wallet by the educational institutions. So those documents and any other documents issued by government bodies are known as issued documents, since they're issued by an official authority. Digilocker is a cloud storage application that allows students to share their educational records by entering an email address to generate a share link. Only one document can be shared at a time, so students may need to generate multiple links for each set of records. Okay, this is a sample that I found online. We have not personally received any documents that have been Digilocker verified because I've been trying to communicate with them to figure out how to sign up because it's requiring an Indian identity number or Indian phone number to sign up for their website or app. So documents that are shared through Digilocker from issuers, so the official government body or higher education institution or exam board, they will have, in theory, the logo and QR code, and the Digilocker app has a QR code reader, but again, we've been unable to verify them. So we have not personally accepted anything that's Digilocker verified, but I'm anticipating, since they are replacing the other services that were able to be used outside of India, that hopefully in the near future, there will be a way for the rest of the world to be able to access or verify those documents, other than their partner center. So they do offer an application programming interface, or API, that allows third-party verifiers to request verification access via server-to-server communication. They don't have a plug-and-play system or a website portal for verifiers. But in my office, we're currently upgrading our computer infrastructure, so we have had to put that on the back burner for the time being. If anybody, oops, didn't mean to go there quite yet, but if anybody else has been using Digilocker, I would love to talk with you. Okay, but here I've included the links for you to get more information on the National Academic Depository or the 3 different services that are currently offering access to the NAD. But as I said, that new UGC notification from June seems to have left things up in the air. It's going to be something definitely worth exploring more in the future. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and continents and examine 2 different digital systems in use in the UK. So the first is the Higher Education Degree Data Check, or HED, which allows third parties to verify degrees by uploading a signed student consent form and paying a fee. Accessing the information requires you to create an account and logging in and then searching for the awarding institution. After entering the student's biographical information into the database, so their name, date of birth, graduation information, you'll also need to enter information about the course of program and the type of qualification, like bachelor or doctoral degree. Now, you will also need to upload a signed consent form. At my institution, we require a signed consent form for verification for all of our applicants, so there aren't any delays with GDPR or other privacy laws. Sometimes the verification can be almost instantaneous, as we see in this example, if all the fields are an exact or close match. But sometimes it may take up to a week for a person at HED to manually perform the validation. So this is a continuation of this previous page. So if you scroll down the screen, you can see more details of the degree program classification. Now, this was confirmed as verified. There are some things in red only because they weren't an exact match when we entered them. Sometimes you'll see names have slight variations. Maybe they have the first and middle name and you only entered the first name, that sort of thing. Okay, let's see. If the documents aren't verified instantly, you might have to log in at a later time throughout the day or the week, and you can do that via your portal. So here you can see the pending, in progress, and recently completed degree inquiries. So you don't have to keep the screen open, hoping that they have information for you. And here is the link to register and log in to the Higher Education Degree Data Check. Next up is the Higher Education Achievement Report, or HEAR. It's a comprehensive record of a student's achievement. It is a digital transcript that was designed to be shared electronically. The largest supplier of HEAR reports is Grad Intelligence, or Grad Intel, which allows approximately 50 UK universities to digitally outsource their secure educational records. Though again, as I mentioned, some UK universities use Digitary. So upon graduation, students receive a Higher Education Achievement Report. During their enrollment, the university created an account with them with Grad Intel. To share their digital records with you, the student has to log into their account and choose to electronically share that record. That will generate an email to you with an access code. And that access code allows you to validate your access token in order to view and download the official HEAR. Now, please note that different institutions utilize different implementations of the HEAR, and Grad Intel in particular is making updates to their service on a regular basis. So the steps might vary when you go to do this yourself. But basically, the student has to enter your name and institution and email address into the Grad Intel share service when they're logged in, and that generates an email to you, or it may generate a series of emails that you have to go through. And then it will tell you that you have a limited number of opportunities and possibly even a limited amount of time to view and download the record. Now, the Higher Education Achievement Report is a valid official digital transcript. At the present time, there does not appear to be a standalone website where you can access this. There did used to be a place that on the GradIntel website where you would enter a token, but now it seems to be done all via the email that is generated by the student's portal. Okay, and finally, let's spend just a few moments talking about the Open Certs initiative from Singapore. Open Certs is an open sourced framework used for issuance of verifiable credentials. And again, this is beyond just the academic records, but that's what we're looking at. Upon graduation from a program, the Open Certs document is issued and can be verified. So students will log into their Open Certs platform and arrange to send their Open Certs file and a website link to you by email. So this is an example that a student forwarded to us from the National University of Singapore when he was trying to share his documents with us. So the student logs in and they can send their Open Cert file to your email address. It is a physical, or it's a digital file that you need to download. And then, this is so cool, you go to the Open Certs website and drag the Open Certs file here. So it's really awesome. You should totally, when we're done with this, you should totally go to this website. And this is a sample as well. So you can just drag this file over here to see how it works. And this is what it looks like for the one that we screen captured for this. So it tells you who is issuer, that they've certified, and then it is the official transcript, which again, like many others, you can print, email, or download. Here is the website for learning more about Open Certs, verifying Open Certs documents, and using the blockchain demo, which is so cool. Okay, so that is all I have, and I think that we have a plethora of questions that I haven't been able to look at. So I'm going to assume that Annetta has been keeping track of all of that.
Absolutely, I sure have. Thank you, Peggy and Leslie. That was such fantastic information regarding digital documents. Personally, I really appreciate the current updates in the field of portable student data mobility. It's really, really exciting. So I definitely really appreciate you for sharing that. As you mentioned, we do have some questions that I would like to go ahead and ask both of you. So to start with, just very generally, just in terms of best practices. So if you are accepting a transcript electronically, would you also still request that degree certificate for countries like Australia and the United Kingdom, for example?
Well, I can only speak for my institution. For our organization, if the degree is conferred very clearly on the transcripts and has a graduation date, conferral date, something like that, not saying that they've completed the program, but actually has the word graduated or conferred, then we do not require a separate degree certificate. But from places like India or China, where it may just have completion program or end date, the degree award process is often separate from the program completion process. Much like in the US, you can complete a degree plan, but you still have to file for graduation, and you may have to do an essay or a thesis or do some other non-coursework requirements. And so for those countries, we do require a separate document. So for us, it's country specific.
I totally agree with you, Peggy. That's how we also look at it at Acro. There are a number of things that a student that might stand between a student actually completing a degree and being awarded the diploma, something as simple as parking fines, for instance. Mm-hmm. So unless it's very clearly stated on the transcript document that the degree was awarded, we still request information directly from the institution about conferral of the degree. It doesn't necessarily have to be a diploma every time, but very often we'll get a letter from the registrar directly directly delivered to Acro, confirming the actual award of the degree.
Yes, we see that often in West Africa where they don't provide, I mean, we require the original transcripts to be sent directly in a sealed envelope from the institution, and they often don't include the degree certificate, but they'll have a cover letter saying the student graduated and here's their stuff. And then we have the official transcript.
Exactly. Exactly.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing best practices, and especially for bringing up a specific best practice when working with records coming from parts of Africa. Thank you. Also, when thinking about best practices, we have a question from Chrisia. Would you recommend that official digital transcripts should all be signed digitally or have an authorized person signing? They've received some without a contact or sign, and they have not accepted those. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, we receive a lot of digital transcripts, and we get very few that are digitally signed. In fact, that was something I only learned about a few months ago because we don't usually use Adobe Acrobat Reader. We use a different PDF viewer and it doesn't show that information. So our process when we're receiving PDFs in particular is look to see who is sending it. We check the headers. We look to see not only that that person is at the institution, but are they somebody who would normally be issuing or generating official academic records. So are they in the registrar's or records office, or are they the librarian, or are they a graduate researcher? So we're looking at a few different things to see who they are, to see if we're even, and we check to make sure that the email address is valid to have come to us. So sometimes we seem to spend more time trying to verify the email address than if we had just sent the documents directly to the institution ourselves for verification. I hope I answered that. I don't know what your policy is, Leslie.
Oh, I have to agree with you, Peggy. That's how we approach it as well. We look to see who the sender is. We confirm that the records have come directly from the official record keeping body at that institution. So whether it's digitally or in paper format, we're always looking for that information.
Excellent, excellent. So kind of moving away from best practices and now thinking about the actual third-party services that we utilize to send and receive digital student data. So specifically, so with the resources that you both have shared today, how many of them require an institution create an account? And do you know if they charge for this service?
Okay, I did try to go through as I was addressing each one, but I know that there's a lot. Let's see, let me look at my list here. Okay, so Digitary does not require the institution to charge. I don't know if they require an account because we had signed up for an account as soon as we learned about them. Parchment, the service that we use, the Parchment Exchange that I demoed today, again, we signed up, no, we don't have an account. We don't have a Parchment Receive account anymore. So those didn't cost us anything because the student is requesting the email process. Let's think. Chesic and CDGDC. CDGDC does not currently charge the students to request degree verification. Again, CDGDC is the one who verifies the degree certificates only for bachelor, master, and doctoral certificates, and those are currently free for the student to request. Chesic, who verifies everything else, they do have fees that the students have to pay to order the transcript and or graduation certificates and or test scores. Let's see, what's after CDGDC and Chesic? Then we went on to TrueCopy, okay. Again, as soon as we found out about TrueCopy, we signed up for an account. It is my understanding that you can get documents from TrueCopy without having an account, but I don't want to speak to that authoritatively because I don't know for sure. We do not pay anything, the student pays for TrueCopy. For the various National Academic Depository in India, supposedly Digitary is Digilocker, sorry, is supposed to be free for students and recipients. But again, I don't have personal experience with Digilocker. We're still trying to get somebody to respond to our emails more than just sending us to the sign up sheet that we can't use. And with CVL, which is the only one we have limited experience with, either the student or the institution can pay, but we are not paying to verify, so we have not done that. After that was HEAD, Higher Education Degree Data Check. That does require the verifier, so your institution, to pay, and most of them are about £12. What was after HEAD? Then was the higher education, yes, the HERE report, or HERE. That is sent by the student via their own HERE account, and there is not a fee for us. It is, I don't remember if there is a fee for the student to pay. Basically, our institution is not interested in paying for verification. If the students want to send us digital copies, they need to be the ones who make arrangements to have their official documents sent to us. And if they're doing it using a digital service that requires a fee, we make them pay that fee. So let's see. And then Open Certs does not have a fee. And students have to request it to be sent to you, and then you drag it on their website and verify the file. So I hope that covered all of them.
Absolutely, I do believe that it does. Thank you, Peggy, for following up on those. So we have a couple questions, and they're all pretty much centered around the same topic, which is this. How do we know we can trust these third-party providers to actually send us the proper information coming from the institution? How do we know that this is not just the students uploading their own documents?
Okay, that is a really great question. For all of the ones that I've demoed today, these are either government bodies like CHESIC and CDGDC, which are both under the auspices of the Ministry of Education, I believe. The National Academic Depository in India is under the Ministry of Technology and Information Technology. Or they are loaded directly by the institutions. Now, the National Academic Depository via Digitary, sorry, I keep saying Digitary, via Digilocker does allow students to upload, or people in general, to upload their own documents, but it is my understanding that they are not able to share those as valid official documents. Things like Parchment and Digitary, those are relationships that are made with the higher education institutions themselves. They are the ones loading the data. So all of the ones that I've talked about today are either government bodies, or the higher education institutions or exam boards are the ones entering the information into the system. Now, obviously, there are other digital student service systems that are outside of the scope of this presentation, and you may end up having to research to find out. Like, I know that there's one in Nigeria that we are always having people ask us if we'll accept, and because we can't find any confirmation that it's approved by the government, and that's another thing that we require, is that it be approved for use. Are they using it in country? Is the government okay with them doing it? Or are they claiming that the government has a link or approval with them, and that is not the case? So you may have different policies on what you accept, but we spend a lot of time reaching out to Education USA or to experts in that country to ask them, can you tell us more about this? Who is in charge of this? Who approves this? Is this something that is appropriate for us to trust, essentially?
Peggy, I think you make a really good point in stating that this is kind of a work in progress. This is
Definitely
something that's relatively new to us. We're all learning about it right now. And so it's, you know, it's our duty to really be as well informed as possible. So you know, thanks everybody for being here on this webinar today, but we don't claim yet to have all the answers.
No, this
We'll
is
just keep
always
researching.
evolving. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And I think the one great thing about this too is that it's definitely evolving, and watching individual countries also in regions start to evolve within this space, I think is very, very exciting as well.
That's right.
So a couple of questions that we have are really going to be surrounding CDGDC and CHESIC. So I would like to just go ahead and reverse gears for a minute.
Okay.
And Peggy, a couple of these questions that came up were around the differences of what CDGDC and CHESIC verify. Can you run that over one more time, please?
Sure, sure.
Thanks.
It is very confusing, especially because they seem to be changing it every year. And so, and then of course we hear rumors all the time that they're going to be merged into one organization, which obviously would make things easier for us. But as of right now, CDGDC only verifies the degree certificates for bachelor, master, and doctoral degrees. If you're not familiar, in China, there's a certificate of graduation or a completion certificate of completing the course requirements for the degree. And then there's also the degree certificate that shows that you have not only completed the course requirements, but everything else that the institution and the Ministry of Education have required in order for the degree to be awarded. So those are two separate documents, and that would take far more than the amount of time that we have. And actually Acro has done some great training on those, on the Chinese education system. But because those are two separate documents, they're verified currently by two separate authorities. So CDGDC, free degree certificates. CHESIC, there's a fee, although it looks like somebody mentioned in the chat that CHESIC's verification of high school graduation is free, and that's fabulous. I did not know that. But to the best of information that we have, since oh, that actually, I think I did know that if they do it within a year using a different form than the one that we have accepted, because there is a free verification tool on CHESIC's website that does not verify the level of detail that we need. And so I didn't even demonstrate that because, like I said, we don't use it in my office. If you want to ask about that, I'd be happy to share samples of what that is, but it doesn't require the level of detail that we need. I don't know if that's like the type of form that Danielle was talking, or the verification that Danielle was talking about. But at CHESIC, they verify the graduation certificates for all levels of study, and they verify university transcripts, whether they are completed or in progress. They verify entrance exams and proficiency exam, and they verify high school diplomas, and they used to also allow students to verify high school transcripts. So if you have a file that's older but isn't expired yet, you can still verify it. I'm assuming, since it's still on there, but we haven't had any personally since they stopped allowing students to order the high school transcripts. So in our office, we still require the high school transcripts to be sent directly from the issuing institution. Now, I believe I saw somebody asking, are we still requiring the official documents? In my office, we allow students to send us scans of everything from China because we're requiring verification of everything. So we want that Chinese language graduation certificate and degree certificate and transcript. But if we're able to verify all three of those elements for higher education students, then they don't actually have to mail us anything. They can just send us scans of the documents, scans of the verification reports. We can verify them both with CHESIC and CDGDC respectively, and then we move on with our lives. Again, at the high school level, since CHESIC is no longer verifying the high school transcripts, then we require those to be in a sealed envelope from the school.
Thank you, Peggy, so much for that. I'm really happy that you brought up that last piece of what your institution does in terms of actual documentation, considering official or unofficial documentation. This is a much larger question for institutions who are still requiring that when students arrive on campus, that they actually bring their quote unquote official copies, or have these official copies sent directly to the institution from the awarding institution, et cetera. But with the, with the advent of all of these technologies that that Peggy and Leslie have been speaking of today, it really does change the question to what is your own institutional policy, and should that be adapted for today's digital age. And so that's a much larger policy
Mhm.
question that we are really excited to start having. And so I know we do have a lot more questions that we did not get to cover. We will make sure that our panelists have a record of these questions, and hopefully we'll be able to follow up with you guys with the questions that we were not able to cover today. I want to give a huge thank you to Leslie and Peggy for sharing all of this fantastic information. And so really getting us thinking about what our institutions are doing with our digital documentation policy, and maybe changes that we want to make in the future, and what other possibilities there are to get our institutions using digital documentation. So thank you both so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And for everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy and hectic lives to join us today. And we really hope to see all of you again at another virtual Acro event. Thank you all so much, and we will hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Leslie.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you,
Bye.
Linda.